time to count them, but I believe we have a little over 15. So when I call your name up, if you could please step up to the mic and just please be reminded that you have 3 minutes to speak. First up is Mika Thomas regarding master scheduling.
Before you start speaking, I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit of a disclosure here to you all. As you all know, you have to show up 15 minutes prior to the meeting to let us put the comment card. We provide speakers 3 minutes to speak, and at 3 minutes we'll mute the microphone. Public comment cards are only applicable to the meeting in which you're at. If you're here to speak on agenda items, that's the second speaking under. If you're not speaking on agenda items, we'll halt you and let you speak at the time. Please identify the agenda item you're going to speak about. You get one opportunity per meeting to share your comments with the Board of Trustees, not multiple. If the speaker is not present when his or her name is called, speakers will get the opportunity to speak. Speakers and public comments do not reflect the opinion of the administration or the Board of Trustees. Sorry. As a governing body of the district, the board reserves the right to change the order of the agenda items on the notice of the meeting and or defer agenda items until a later date. Each speaker will be provided up to 3 minutes as I indicated. No disruptive behavior. If you disrupt the meeting, we'll warn you one time. If you do it again, I'll have you removed. Don't do that, please. And disruptions are a violation of law, and that includes verbal utterance or other things that you may do to disrupt us. So please avoid those things, and thank you all for being here to speak to us. So if you could, please identify your agenda item, and then we'll get going.
Item number 7. My name is Micah Thomas. I want to voice my support for the proposed calendar for the extended teacher planning days. My family has been in the district for 8 years. Both of my children have had amazing teachers here in Lovejoy, teachers who know and both love my kids. They have provided them with a remarkable education. Thank you to all of our Lovejoy teachers and staff for all you guys do. The last 3 years have been difficult, especially for our teachers. They have faced circumstances that we could not have imagined. Teachers throughout the state are leaving the profession at record numbers. Surrounding districts are able to pay more than we can. I wish we could pay our teachers more. I know they deserve it, as we all do. But if we cannot pay our teachers more, then we need to support our teachers in other ways. I am here to ask the board to approve the proposed calendar with the extended teacher planning days. After sitting through the informational meeting with Katie Cordell, I was blown away by everything our teachers have to do outside of just teaching our children. I've heard from many of our teachers who say they support and they need these proposed plan of extra days. Our district is calling on us not only to support our teachers, but also to retain them. This is the right thing to do. I am concerned that we will lose a lot of great teachers if this retention plan is not put into place. I know this may be an inconvenience for some families to have kids at home an extra 7 planning days. I look at this as extra valued time with my children that I get to have with my own children. Most importantly, I am more concerned that if we do not do this now, we are at risk of losing these teachers that we love so much. I do not want us to look back and regret not making this change. We have the opportunity right now to support and retain our teachers by giving them these extra 7 days. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Courtney Alford. I've been a teacher in Lovejoy for 16 years, and my son Austin has been a student in the district since kindergarten and is now in 7th grade at Willow Springs. I'm speaking tonight to ask the board to approve extended teacher planning days and to explain how beneficial this would be to Lovejoy teachers as well as to our students. In Lovejoy, kids come first because teachers and leaders here are dedicated to putting kids first, even though it means making significant personal sacrifices, such as working late evenings or weekends at school. Extended planning days will provide adequate planning time, which is a huge incentive for both general education and special education teachers. Prioritizing retention of qualified teachers who can provide quality instruction and support to every student, no matter what their learning needs are, is key to preserving the quality of education that Lovejoy is known for, where kids do come first. Special populations in Lovejoy will benefit from extended planning days, as this will help retain and attract qualified gen ed and sped teachers capable of meeting all individual needs. The extended planning days would be beneficial to our specialist populations as we would have time to plan and prepare individualized lessons to better meet all learning needs. Our special populations also often receives additional services and support outside the classroom, including ABA therapy and OT therapy. And some of these services could be provided on non-instructional extended planning days, keeping our students with the highest learning needs from missing instructional time. The extra 20 to 25 minutes of instructional time at the elementary level would not cause a negative impact, but a positive impact on our youngest learners. In fact, it would give us more time to dig a bit deeper and allow them to learn more without being rushed like we currently are. These minutes would allow us time for additional intervention or enrichment block, time to go more in depth with curriculum, time to reteach concepts for mastery, and time to teach social studies in isolation rather than squeezing it into our ARLA block the best we can. I would not support something that would be harmful or that would negatively impact my own son or the hundreds of students I've worked with in Lovejoy ISD and love as my own. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall.
I'm speaking on agenda item number 7. I'm a teacher and parent who lives in the district. This is my 15th year of teaching and my 4th in Lovejoy. Being a teacher has always meant making sacrifices. As teachers, we willingly sacrifice our own money all year long to fill our classrooms with things we know our students need. We sacrifice Saturday morning sleep-ins to go to our students' 8 a.m. games to build relationships. We sacrifice nights of sleep worrying about students who may be struggling emotionally or academically. We gladly make those sacrifices because we love our students and we love what we do. Many of us sacrificed offered RIFT money just a few years ago because we loved this district and wanted to stay and teach here as opposed to another one nearby. However, due to all of the added job requirements and responsibilities that have been added to our plates in the last few years, the sacrifice that we are now being asked to make is time with our own children and families in order to ensure that we are meeting the needs of yours. That is no longer a sacrifice that feels comfortable. Currently, we have a 1 hour a day to plan. At the elementary level, that time is devoted to team planning to develop the lessons that will be taught during whole group instruction in all subject areas. In order to do this planning as an effective PLC, that requires 4 to 5 of our 1 hour planning times, as well as about an hour after school. While this planning is imperative to quality instruction, it does not in any way actually mean we are ready to present to or fully teach our students. To deliver these lessons in engaging and interactive ways, slides are often needed to be created in all subject areas. Materials need to be gathered, prepared, and organized. Often lessons need to be reworked prior to the day's instruction to ensure mastery or growth in all students as the week progresses. Material needs to be reviewed to ensure effective delivery. Stations must be planned and set up, and time must be spent planning for and gathering materials for reteaching any misconceptions. These are all things that must be done in order to present lessons effectively each day. Outside of our team planning time, we plan for and organize supplies for 7 to 10 small group lessons each day in multiple content areas, and plan and create intervention and enrichment lessons to ensure all students' needs are met. On top of teaching, we must also respond to emails, update PST information, attend additional campus and district meetings, grade papers and CSO work, collaborate with special education teachers, instructional aides, and curriculum department heads in order to ensure that we are meeting all academic needs, and handle follow-up procedures to behavior and academic situations that may arise. With only enough time currently to plan with our teams for whole group instruction, the remainder of these tasks and prep work must all be done in our own time, nights and weekends that could instead be spent with our own children and families, but must be sacrificed in order to be ready to deliver the effective, high-quality instruction that Lovejoy is known for. As more and more duties and responsibilities have been added to our plates, more and more of our personal time is being sacrificed, causing our teachers to burn out at astronomical rates. The extended planning days being looked at will not eliminate the work that teachers are having to do outside of contract time on evenings and weekends, but could help lessen the significant load we currently face each day. I am hopeful that you vote in favor of giving teachers this added time through the proposed extended planning days.
Thank you, ma'am, for your comments.
Okay, I'm speaking on item number 7. I am a first grade teacher at Hart Elementary, but before I was a teacher in Lovejoy, I was also a student as I attended here kindergarten through 12th grade. Some of my former teachers are actually sitting here in the room with me tonight. And these teachers and attending the school were some of the driving factors for me to want to come back and teach for our district. The Lovejoy community has been a huge part of my life, and I truly love getting to still be a part of it. I'm speaking tonight to share my insight as to why I believe that the time added to this school day due to additional staff planning days would not only be beneficial to staff, as you have heard and will hear, but to our students as well. When I began teaching in Lovejoy 4 years ago, our staff included reading and math interventionists. Within the last few years, we have lost these positions at the elementary level, which has in turn now made us not only the classroom teacher, but the interventionist for our students as well. Not only has losing these interventionists impacted me as a teacher, it has severely impacted our students, but having the extra time added in our school day could negate these effects. In our current daily schedule, we are given 30 minutes a day for leopard time, which we use to conduct intervention and enrichment opportunities for our students. This 30-minute block of time, though, is unfortunately only enough time to offer either reading language arts or math enrichment and intervention, and to a smaller number of students who it reached before. With the time that would be added to our school day, say it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it may be, this would allow teachers to have an additional block of time in our day to provide to our students not just one subject area of intervention and enrichment, but both math and reading to our students every single day. This will be a very beneficial change for our students, as it will provide all students with the opportunity to succeed in all subjects. If you guys choose to approve the additional planning days, the minutes that will need to be added to accommodate this will be minutes that are used to benefit our students and will help continue Lovejoy's legacy of excellence. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Hi, my name is Sarah Moody, and I'm currently a first grade teacher at Hart Elementary. Oh, I'm speaking on agenda item 7, sorry. I'm currently a first grade teacher at Hart Elementary. I have taught in the district for 15 years. Some of you know me as a teacher. I've had some of your kids, precious kids in my class, so you know how much I love teaching. In fact, some of my colleagues were a little bit afraid for me to get up because they were afraid that I was going to say, I love teaching. We don't need any more money. We're fine. But that is not what I'm here for. I am here to support the proposed teacher workday calendar. As you have heard from many of the other teachers tonight, teaching is one of the only professions that you cannot prepare for your job during work hours. Our students walk into our room at 7:45 and leave our rooms after carpool and loading buses at 3:25. This gives us approximately 20 minutes before school and 20 minutes after school during our contract time to prepare without students. In those two small windows of time, it is impossible to prepare and plan for the next day. Elementary teachers do get an hour, by the time we drop the kids off and come back, 45 minutes of planning time each day. However, we use that time to plan as a team for the 25 whole group lessons that we will be teaching the next week. These lessons include phonics, reading, writing, math, social studies, and science. To prepare for these 25 lessons well, and to make sure that all students are afforded the same great lesson, we plan as a team 4 to 5 of those 45-minute periods. When our students leave at 3:25, teachers are then left to prepare small group lessons in math, writing, and reading on their own personal time. This averages to about 25 small group lessons per week. We also need to input data, prepare anchor charts, and gather books and supplies needed for our lessons. There is no possible way to do all of these things in the 20 minutes at the end of our day. Because of this, most teachers stay at school at least 1 hour per day, and if they have personal kids like I do and they need to get to their extracurricular activities, they often leave and come back on the weekends to finish the work. The time we sacrifice has increasingly become more and more each year, and honestly, no matter what the schedule changes, my team and I will do that every year, no matter what. However, there are a lot of teachers that are saying, we will not do this anymore. Sorry, I cry at things that don't need to be cried at. So I do not want you to think I'm complaining about any of these things because I do love what I do. But I do believe that a teacher workday calendar would greatly help balance teacher work life, which would not only help make happier, more energetic teachers who do not burn out easily, but it would also give us time to spend with our own kids and family as we could prepare for these small group lessons on our and other things that we're not preparing with our team on the teacher work days. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
I'm speaking on agenda item 7. I'm a third grade teacher at Puster Elementary. My family and I have lived in Lovejoy ISD my whole life up until last year. I've been a part of the district as a student or employee since the fall of 1998 and have gotten to see the district evolve over the past 24.5 years. I'm speaking today as a concerned teacher for what the future of Lovejoy may bring. The biggest concern is staying aligned with one of the district's core values of building a legacy of excellence for our students and keeping the teachers in district that can continue to do that. In Lovejoy, we are so special and so unique. We're a small, tight-knit community that continuously shows up and rallies around one another for celebrations or whenever there's a need. Within the larger community that makes up Lovejoy is a smaller one, the teachers. However, year after year, it seems as though more teachers are leaving not only the district, but the profession. Why? There's one answer: time. Teachers work day in and day out to provide the best instruction, interventions, and enrichment they can for each and every student to make sure they meet all of their needs. And over the years, I have only seen the workload increase. Not only do teachers plan for our daily instruction, we also plan for win-time interventions, enrichments, and before-school tutoring to create and instill the legacy of excellence within our children. However, planning and prepping for everything we need to do and get done cannot always be done during our contracted work hours due to various factors. Teachers must attend parent and committee meetings, schedule and attend conferences, interpret student work samples and data to update PST goals, write PLAFs before ARD meetings, grade student work in a timely manner and adjust previously planned instruction to meet student needs, put in progress reports and report card grades, and write individualized comments for behavior in each academic area for our students. The list could go on and on. With all of these responsibilities teachers have, most of us work outside of contracted hours at home, which takes our valuable family time away. Unfortunately, because of all of this, it continues to drive teachers to make the hard decision to leave the profession, and when they leave the district, they're also taking the legacy of excellence teaching with them. However, the district now has the opportunity to remedy this problem. Giving teachers 1 to 2 days of additional planning could make a world of difference for us. I believe that it would retain teachers in our district and in turn also maintain our legacy of excellence. At this point, continuing to stay in Lovejoy while working the hours that we currently are needs to be something that is taken into consideration for myself, my coworkers, and our families. While this new calendar would not give us all of the time and hours back that we endlessly work and sacrifice family time for, it would be a step in the right direction. I hope that the additional planning days are a consideration for next year and that the teachers' voices are heard.
Thank you.
I'm speaking on agenda item 7. Many of my courageous peers have stood up here tonight to share their passion for this profession in this district, something we don't often do because we are servants to our community. But the time has come that we must stand up and we must share our concerns. As a 28-year master teacher who has given her life to pursue a higher calling on it, my heart is breaking for our profession. I have always believed in public education. Since I began my career in 1993, the demands on teachers have compounded exponentially every year to the point that we must now sacrifice of our own lives and families for the sake of the students and the families that we serve. I am eligible to retire at the end of this year, but have never even considered that thought until now. And unfortunately, it is being considered if nothing changes. Because unfortunately, I can retire and work in another field and not only get paid more, but be more respected than I am right now, and that is heartbreaking. It's not the kids. They continue to be the fuel that gets me out of bed and into my classroom by 6:30 a.m. every day. And the reason I work nonstop at least until 5:30 p.m. each night. And this doesn't count the work that we do at home and on the weekends. And I welcome anyone to join me at 6:30 any day to walk alongside me and experience the day in a life of a teacher. The problem in education is nationwide, but here in this community, Lovejoy's legacy of excellence has no chance to continue if the amazing teachers who have continuously gone above and beyond the call of duty leave the profession or leave this district for surrounding districts who will both pay more and give more back in time and support. The addition of time can send a message to educators that this district is trying to do something to communicate to teachers that all that we do is seen. However, the topic of compensation must be addressed in the near future if we are to continue to draw and also keep the exceptional educators that have made Lovejoy the exemplary district that it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shelley Lander. I have taught since 1999 and 7 years in this district. That means I've taught approximately 154 of this district's children. If we break that into hours, it's over 200,000 hours and 13 million minutes I've invested. This doesn't include all the non-contract hours of tutoring, phone calls, preparing engaging lessons, decorating my room for theme days, emails, letters to students, reading the latest research, and planning for small groups, just to name a few. I do all of this, and I do it gladly. What I would hope is that this board that represents this community would gladly give me some of those hours back. These days don't hurt or take away from anything our children receive. In actuality, it will give them more because they will have teachers that are ready and prepared to give back to them. It is also a sign of appreciation, of acknowledgement to the work that we do. I will say this by no means covers the issue of compensation. That should continue to be the forefront of every discussion if you want to keep highly effective teachers, but it is a step in the right direction. It gives momentum to further changes that will also keep teachers coming back year after year. I want nothing more than this district to stay on top. But how can we if we continue to lose teachers to surrounding districts? People can argue and say this is a problem across America. It's true. It's a state problem. They should release the billions in surplus. They should. Other districts are facing the same thing. Again, true. But here's the deal. I don't work in another district. I work in this district. Your children go to this district. We are here. So what can we do to make an impact on where we are? If we don't start offering incentives to current employees or prospective employees, we will continue to lose out on highly effective teachers. We can't rest on this is Lovejoy anymore. This community says it values teachers. It's time to act. Let's put those words into action by giving us the flex days we need to continue our legacy of excellence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaking on agenda number 7, I'm Ariel Stewart, and I'm here to support my hardworking colleagues. Many have asked, why do teachers need more time? At each grade level, staff has varying levels of planning time and responsibilities, but I'll try to keep it as universal as possible because adding in teacher extended planning days, as is being discussed, is universally helpful to all involved in education, including our most important participants of our district, our students. Ultimately, I hope you see that the goal with this new calendar is to alleviate time constraints that are currently in place and thereby create a better work environment for our educators and a better learning environment for our students. Our school year and days of instruction are a wonderful journey each and every year, but it's important to acknowledge how much time goes into crafting a unique learning experience that caters to the needs of our students. I'll briefly list some of the items that our educators deal with on a day-to-day basis in this ongoing challenge of crafting a meaningful, fulfilling learning experience for our students while also trying to maintain a healthy work-life balance. What do we do during our planning time? We collaborate with our teaching team, curriculum and instruction team, admin, and more. We use the PLC model and we analyze our student data, use that to drive our upcoming instruction. We then need to plan and construct those lessons and hands-on experiences. This is key to student success, but it is very time-consuming. We then also need to plan for our WIN intervention time, which then includes analyzing more data for our students individually and then as a team, putting them in our groups to meet their appropriate level across our grade level, planning those materials to teach, and organizing them and sharing them with our teammates. Yes, we at the elementary level have a 1-hour planning block, but that also includes the time walking our kids to and from specials, stopping to check our mailboxes, checking our emails, communicating with our kids that need us during that time, and maybe even a chance to use the restroom. We have paperwork, we make copies, we have volunteers that help make us copies that we have to organize and spend time with, fixing the copy machine, work orders for technology if it's not working, vertical team meetings, committee meetings, staff meetings, trainings, and learning how to use the new materials and resources we're presented with. Grading, we need the time necessary to not only grade for mastery for each assignment, but also to put in the necessary time to provide differentiated feedback to each individual student to help them in our learning process. A very real-time aspect of having students under our care is we are building relationships with them. Time is also spent meeting with parents, meeting with other colleagues in our school to conference about the students we share, addressing behavior needs or issues that arise, problem solving with our students, intervening and monitoring every student in our school because they're all our students. We bring our backpacks to the nurse when our kids are sick. We collect work for our students that are often absent. We clean our rooms, help organize, and keep it to be a nice place. The extended planning days help with meaningful, differentiated school instruction and our relationship building, while also retaining loving and experienced teachers by supporting us with the gift of valuable time back with our families. I think we can all agree the most important thing is students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariel.
Hi, I'm Katie Modine, and I'm a third grade teacher at Puster. I live in the district, and I am a parent of 4 children in the district. This is my 12th year as a classroom teacher and my 3rd year as a teacher in Lovejoy. Many ask me what keeps me in Lovejoy. Why not go to a neighboring district where the workload is less because they have the financial means to hire the extra support staff, and my salary would be about $800 more a paycheck? Simple. I love Lovejoy. I love working where I live, and I love working where my kids go to school. I also love the strong PLC that Lovejoy creates. I love my team, and I love my admin. I want to give you some perspective about our planning time throughout the week. Teachers are with students face-to-face for 35 hours of the 40-hour work week. The other 5 hours are set aside to plan with our teams. However, we don't always get to use our planning time for what it is intended for. For example, last week and this week, I lost or will lose all of my planning periods each day, almost every single day. I have 504 meetings, ARDS, PST meetings, and Reading Academy 7 of those 10 days. On one of the days I was able to meet with my team to plan, I needed to leave planning to help with a behavior issue for one of my students, resulting in me missing that planning as well. This left me with 2 days in the last 2 weeks where I was able to meet with my team to plan for the upcoming week. Therefore, I did not get to plan with them for the week's daily instruction, individual and small group intervention, tutoring before school, Leopard win time, and all the other responsibilities listed prior to me speaking, along with the individual classroom and student responsibilities I have to complete each week for my 44 students. I had to make up those hours of planning time I missed on my personal time in the evenings or over the weekend. This infringes on my own personal family time. Last Saturday, I took more than half of a day away from my family to get the work done. My husband and children have had to sacrifice not having a mom or wife around because of the amount of work I take home each night and over the weekends. This also results in me missing my kids' sporting events and other evening activities they have. I know extra planning days would prevent many teachers from leaving the district, But knowing, if we knew we had 1 or 2 extended planning days a month to get more of our work done and then have the gift of time to enjoy our families over the weekends, is time we would not get in surrounding districts. And I think it would keep many teachers as well as attract other quality teachers to Lovejoy.
Thank you.
I'm speaking on agenda item number 7. Good evening. I am a 3rd grade teacher at Puster. I've had the pleasure of teaching at Puster since I first got hired in 2015, fresh out of college. I remember when I told my family and friends that I got hired, they looked at me and wondered if I was nervous to start in such an intimidating district. Throughout the years, though, comments are always made from strangers like, wow, I've heard there's so much work there. Why do you have to do all that? Or it's not like that where I teach. Those comments never really bothered me because it was similar to the workload I had during my master's program. Nothing felt like too much. It felt normal to me, at least until now. I want to backtrack for a second. There's about a 13-year span between my siblings and I. We grew up in Plano, right down the road. My brother and sisters and I had the same teachers in almost all grades, K through 5. Because of the familiar faces, it always felt like home to me walking through the elementary school. At first, Puster seemed like it was going to be that kind of place. Up until a few years ago, I could almost describe Puster this same way, but over the years, we've lost more and more veteran teachers due to the workload/family life balance, salary compensation, among other factors. Fast forward to now, any working mom, like me, will tell you that we wear many hats. At first, many of them include raising a family, being a homemaker, and for me, being a teacher in Lovejoy. My school day starts at around 7 a.m. on average when I walk through the door. I have about 30 minutes before my students arrive at my classroom at 7:30 for tutoring, small group interventions, then teaching until dismissal around when 3:30, around when dismissal is over. I am with my students between 7 to 8 hours a day. Even when I leave school by 4:15 each day to go pick up my own kids, I'm only with them until their bedtime at 7:30. That's about 3 hours a day with my own children. As soon as my kids go to sleep, it's go time, as we call it at home. My husband and I double down on household duties, prepping our kids' things for the next day. Most nights, that means I'm not opening my school bag till 9 p.m. Sarah, it's our name. We cry at things, right? I try to work about an hour, so I'm getting adequate sleep to turn around and do it all again the next day. I'm constantly being asked why I continue to do this by family members and other teachers that I know personally who have left Lovejoy to go teach somewhere else. They're earning more money and their workload is considerably less. Right now, my why is because of the teachers that I work with and my team and my administration. In most districts, the starting rate is more than I make for new teachers, and I've been here for 8 years. So what's the solution? As we all know, monetary compensation is not possible at this time, even with the rate of inflation in today's economy. Give us more time back to our families, more time to get our jobs done since we are teaching with our students all day. Extra planning days will allow us to be able to use our time to do things like grade papers, update student data, make parent phone calls, return emails, look through formative assessments, to plan small group instruction, just to name a few. This would allow me the flexibility to leave school, work at school, spend the evenings with my family, and come refreshed and ready to go the next day. I fear that if we're not given these extra days, most of my team, who is here with me today, will not be returning. I fear my reason for coming to stay in Lovejoy is no longer going to be here, leaving me with a very difficult decision. Please consider these days to be vital in keeping the Lovejoy excellence that we all know and that we all hope stays here today. We all want to keep Lovejoy standing above the rest, so we need to make a change. Thank you for the consideration and the implementation of the extended planning days for the 23-24 school year.
Thank you, Sarah.
Hi, my name is Norm Price, and I'm a 4th grader at Puster Elementary. My mom, Shannon Price, is a 3rd grade teacher at Puster. My sister comes with us too. My mom has to work on many days that I have off. She also works after school during my swimming, football, and basketball practices. She sits in the car to return emails, call parents, and grade papers. She never gets to see me practice. My mom works a lot after school and on the weekends. I hope you put extra planning days into the calendar so I can spend more time with my mom. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, I have to go after that. Hello, my name is Shannon Price, and this is my 18th year teaching in Lovejoy. When I first moved here as a teacher, this was the place to be. It was extremely hard to get a job in our district. Only the best of the best worked here. I would tell people that I worked in Lovejoy and they would be in awe. It saddens me to say that I don't think this is the case anymore. Instead, people say, why? Don't you know you could go down the street and make more in another district? Of course, I am aware as I see where my friends and colleagues are going, but my choice is to stay here in Lovejoy. Over the past few years, my family has had the opportunity to move to Australia for a couple of years for my husband's work. I chose not to go because I was fearful that I wouldn't get my job back when we returned. As a result, my husband has continued to commute back and forth. Certainly less than ideal, but I was truly scared that the district would not be able to hire me back because how difficult it used to be to even get an interview. Nevertheless, nevertheless, an open position to be hired. This is simply not the case anymore. Unfortunately, due to higher compensation and better benefits in other districts, Lovejoy is not the place to teach anymore. I have lost so many coworkers as a result to our budget challenges, and I'm very concerned about continuing the legacy of excellence as a parent have firsthand experience now seeing this happening with my own children's teachers. Approving the extended planning days in our calendar would allow Lovejoy to be more competitive when hiring new teachers and also retain the teachers that we currently have. Let's be realistic. The solutions teachers want is higher pay and better benefits. While this feels like a bit of a consolation prize, without passing this at a minimum, I'm fearful that we will lose even more teachers. I hope the board and community understands how important it is to put the revised calendar schedule with extended planning days in place. It is something that will help to continue the legacy of excellence, boost the morale of the existing staff, attract new teachers, and provide something in lieu of just more money, which clearly our district cannot compete with in comparison to other districts at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Hi, I'm Lane Collins. I teach second grade at Hart Elementary. I'm going to speak on agenda item number 7. 42,839. This is the number of Texas teachers who left the profession in 2022, according to TEA. I think we can all agree that education and the teaching field in particular are facing unprecedented times in regards to increasing demands on teachers, lack of compensation, and teacher burnout. You as a board have the opportunity to positively impact the retention and recruitment of highly qualified teachers in Lovejoy ISD with your vote to approve the extended teacher planning days for next year's calendar. In a study done by OECD, other countries outperformed the United States when their teachers got more planning time and less instructional time face-to-face with students. While being a teacher is my profession, it's not the only job I held at school. I'm a nurse, a counselor, an interventionist, a peer mediator, tech support, curriculum developer, team leader, and encourager, just to name a few. While I love all these hats that I wear, the majority of my time during the day is spent face-to-face with students, and it leaves little to no time to complete my job responsibilities for planning and instruction within the workday. The opportunity to have additional days to focus on planning and implement the learning and new learning that we have would be beneficial for teachers and learners, and that will have a positive impact on the legacy of excellence that Lovejoy ISD is known for.
Thank you, Lane.
My name is Caroline DeLimba, and I'm speaking on agenda item 7. I've been a parent, second grade teacher, and community member here for 6 years. I'm speaking tonight to ask the board to approve extended teacher planning days to retain teachers, including myself, and preserve educational quality in the district. The day-to-day demands and unrealistic expectations of the teaching profession are difficult to understand without experiencing it firsthand. There's no other profession that has such expectations without support in the form of time, benefits, and compensation. Yet teachers in Lovejoy are expected to do even more in and out of the classroom than the average teacher, and to do it at a higher caliber than everywhere else. Yet we're given less support, inadequate time, and uncompetitive compensation for our monumental efforts and accomplishments for our students. Unlike other districts, Lovejoy teachers wear multiple hats and act as both the classroom teacher and the sole interventionist. We overwork and make personal sacrifices in order to plan and deliver the quality of lessons and interventions Lovejoy kids deserve, but 60-plus hour work weeks are not sustainable. We need adequate planning time to complete the 40 to 50% of our job description that cannot be completed with kids in the room and inadequate planning time. Extended planning days can help provide that. Currently, our elementary days are so full and rushed that we often have to sacrifice important relationship building routines, like greeting my students at the door or having a daily morning meeting. An extra 20 to 25 minutes in our day will allow us to dedicate time to those routines without sacrificing our instructional minutes. The added minutes can also be used to teach social studies in isolation instead of being integrated for additional intervention or enrichment blocks. The extended planning schedule will provide time to teach all that we're responsible for without being rushed, yet it will not fatigue our young learners at only 20 to 25 minutes. In addition to keeping valuable teachers from leaving Lovejoy, adequate planning time will equate to better teaching and in turn better learning for both our general ed and special education students. This incentive will attract and retain highly qualified teachers capable of meeting their learning needs. Teachers will also be able to plan more effective and more individualized lessons, small groups, interventions, and assessments if we're provided the time to do so. The VATRE not passing sent teachers the message that adequate compensation wasn't a priority for about 60% of the community, and it stung. Approving the extended planning days is our opportunity to show teachers that their personal time and dedication to the craft of teaching is respected by the board and appreciated by the community. Lovejoy is one of the best districts in our state because of the expert teachers and administrators that put kids first and work hard to make it so great. In order to stay great, we have to keep our amazing teachers, but the status quo in Lovejoy is not sustainable. I've said for years that I would retire here, but I'm reconsidering this for myself and will not be able to continue to teach in Lovejoy unless I'm given time to do my job. I urge the board to approve extended planning days for the teachers and the students in Lovejoy. Otherwise, many in our district will be in for a rude awakening if and when we experience low quality teaching for the first time in Lovejoy.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hayden Weir, and my wife is a second grade teacher in Lovejoy, and our son is a third grade student at Puster. We also have family who owns property in Lucas. My wife and all of her coworkers make significant personal sacrifices on a daily basis to deliver the best education possible for students in this district. She puts in between 20 to 30 hours of unpaid overtime each week in order to get her job done. This means she is either too tired or too busy for our family at the end of each day. This looks like takeout meals instead of family dinners, me missing work to stay home with our sick child because she can't find a substitute, so she does not have to put in for a sub and split up her class due to the sub shortage. Missing family gatherings so she can grade or plan, and more. I've asked her to take a job in other districts where the demands are less and the pay is better, where she could finally put our family first, but she has refused to leave the coworkers and administration in Lovejoy until this year. In schools around the U.S., an entire week is dedicated to teacher appreciation. This concept is built on the fact that on some level, we know that we do to our teachers is wrong. We as a society have a basic understanding that teachers are exploited, even if we are too nice to use that verbiage. There is no amount of work, thank you notes, and flowers and coffee mugs that will make up for this. Lovejoy has the opportunity to show its teachers that their time, effort, and dedication are appreciated in a meaningful way that will change the lives of its teachers while also benefiting the students that they teach. I'm speaking to the school board tonight to ask them to quit making demands of their employees that would be considered unreasonable in other industries. I'm asking the board and this community to stop exploiting my wife and her coworkers for their physical and emotional labor by giving them adequate time to complete their job within contract hours through these extended planning days. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Lana Jasper, and I'm speaking on agenda item number 7. I have been a teacher for 27 years, and I currently teach 4th grade at Puster Elementary. My goal is to paint a picture for you of what a typical day for teachers looks like. I start in the morning with a House Bill group at 7:30, immediately followed by leopard time, where we share small groups from 8 to 8:30. By this time, an hour has passed and I haven't even scratched the surface of needs that need to be addressed. I then quickly greet my students, take attendance, lunch count, try to start my 45-minute reading block by 8:35. I teach a mini lesson, then send them off for independent practice while I quickly move to the back table to begin a small group. After this group, I check on the students' independent work and then head back to another small group. We move into word work and/or grammar and then writing, which follows the same model as above. During our independent work time, there are kids that need help, kids that finish early, and kids that are off task, and unexpected behaviors that need to be dealt with at that time, leaving me less time. We switch classes at 10:40, head to lunch, recess, and then lead the kids to specials classes. I will either have lunch or recess duty during this time. When the students go to specials, I gather what I need for planning time and meet with my team. During planning time, I may also have a 504 PST, ARD, Kid Talk, team meeting, or meeting planned by the curriculum team. During this time, we plan the standards that we will address for the following week, compare data, plan for reteaching in small groups for leopard time, house bill groups, restructure our groups, and create lessons. Our lessons do not come out of scripted books, but instead we write and create most of it. And to do so takes an incredible amount of time. Almost always, pretty much every day, it's carried over to home. A tried and true resource for effective teaching is purposely utilizing our planning time. However, with the supplemental responsibilities, aside from just teaching, we are often left with little to no time to use this allotted planning as it is intended. At 12:50, my second class comes in and I start my afternoon block. We switch classes back at 2:55, leaving us 5 minutes for dismissal. We each have a duty after school as well. At the end of each day, I am looking at student work to see how they are doing and adjust my plans for the following day to make sure I'm addressing all my students' needs. This fast and furious day that I've led you through is best case scenario. However, there are expectations that I haven't mentioned, such as me studying each of my students and their work to identify possible deficiencies, making individualized accommodations and modifications for students who need them, while also creating groups to ensure that each and every day each student is being challenged enough to support their own learning. My hope for you is that your decision favors that of the Lovejoy teachers and the students, so we can continue to provide superior educational opportunities that would be supported by additional planning time. I do not come here to perpetuate the notion that teachers want more time off than we have, but rather desperately need more planning time and time in the day to meet these expectations that our students rightfully deserve. Additional planning time would be greatly beneficial for our learners and the effectiveness of our instruction. I love being a teacher. I love my students deeply, and I love Lovejoy. We ask that you support us in providing the calendar that allows us to continue our legacy of excellence. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for those comments. All right, item 6, consider and act on the Director of Safety and Security.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I'm asking that we change the title from our Head of Safety and Security to Director of Safety and Security. I think this accurately reflects his responsibilities and is responsive to the role. There have been a lot of changes and a lot of requirements with safety and security, and increased focus on the safety and security of our students and staff. For this year and next year, we can make these changes from our security grant. And so I am recommending that we change the title for Casey Littlefield back there. Casey, on the way. Recommending that we approve Casey Littlefield as the Director of Safety and Security. Question?
Questions, comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to change his title. But I also want to say, Casey, you're so valuable, and I'm so grateful for you. And for everyone that's paying attention, there's bad stuff going on in a lot of schools.
Right.
And we are so lucky that we have Casey and his team. So this is just a small gesture, I think. So I definitely make the motion.
I second.
Motion made by Ann and second by Amy. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. And Casey, thank you gratefully. All right, item 7, master scheduling study update. Dr. Tinsley.
So just to speak a little bit to hi, I'm Holly Haynes. I'm the principal at Pester. Thank you for the opportunity to share my perspective tonight. With regards to the applicant pool, I've been a hiring administrator in Lovejoy ISD for 7 years as an AP or as a principal. And I will tell you that it has changed drastically as of last year. Last year was the first real taste of this shortage that we're dealing with. I think it was the first year that it really hit us hard at home. In the past, we have easily had 75 plus highly qualified applicants, many more applicants than that, but 75 that we could close our eyes and pick from and put in the classroom and feel very, very comfortable with them teaching our children. Last year, we had maybe 7 to 10 highly qualified applicants, and some of those chose not to come to Lovejoy even after offered. I had new to teaching teachers turn me down last year. My feelings were hurt. We're not used to that, and it is different for us. It's a very, very different hiring environment, and that's it. It's tough.
And then from a secondary perspective, with some of the experiences I've been through, so in 2018, my first job as a building principal was to open up a new middle school. And just to kind of describe a little bit and elaborate on what Holly was talking about, when we posted positions for that middle school, because we were hiring all positions as a brand new one, right? And we were in a neighboring district with similar demographics. We would easily have 25 to 30 candidates right away, and highly qualified candidates that we were excited to interview, where we could have 5 or 6 that we could bring in, make sure that we were going to put the best teacher in the seat to teach that class, right? Fast forward to now, and similar comparisons at both high schools I've been at, but to focus on Lovejoy right now, if we were to post a position for next year, that candidate pool of 25 to 30 would probably shrink by about 66%. And it's not, you might say, oh, well, we have 10 candidates to interview. Well, you might really only be interested in 3 or 4 of those candidates. And then when you actually sit down and interview them, when we're going to put them in front of 28 kids times 6 at the high school, that's a lot of kids. And like Dr. Tinsley showed, we want to make sure that we're having a high impact with those educators that we select. And so to kind of end on Holly's original point, we're also, let's say out of those 10, and we're talking March and April when we post a position, not June. We'll talk about June later if you have any questions, because that's a whole different story. But end of the day, when we get down to that 1 or 2 that we really like and we make an offer, right, we're surrounded by districts that pay $3,000 to $5,000 more. And so we might lose out on candidate 1 and end up having to go with someone we're still comfortable with on 2, or as the months continue, my example in having maybe 10 or 12 candidates in March or April shrinks each month that it goes by. And then the amount of talent and the amount of experienced, great teachers that want to come here, those options shrink, right? And so you're playing that game. And so
got it now. All we have to do is push a button, and we keep forgetting to push the button. So we're getting text that says we can't hear you. So we think we have it fixed, though. Okay, staff retention. Some of the things that we do really well here in Lovejoy is we want to engage with our staff. We want them to know how important they are. We want them to have a voice. We see them here tonight. We feel that they do feel that way. We want them to feel comfortable. We also want to support them, and we do offer a very generous extended leave. Some of these things that most other districts do not have. So we even offer, after you use your 10 days, we have staff members that can take off more time, up to 10 days, and just use the cost of a sub and not have to be docked their pay, things like that. Appreciation, recognition, it's very important to us. We're already getting ready for end of the year staff party, so watch out, tug of war. We're going to be doing that, planning that soon. And also even engaging with our guest educators and providing professional development, building their capacity, celebrating them. Looking at that out of district where our teachers can bring their kiddos to the campus that they are on, and also providing a shuttle. That's a big thing. When we are trying to get teachers to come here. We talk about all those types of things, providing that shuttle, and providing professional development, as well as, looking at even those small things like supplemental benefits and coverage. Can we get better rates and better coverage for that? As far as recruiting, we're very excited to say this in the spring, in January, we started our first T-class resident teachers. We had 5. If any of you had that, shake your head, had a student teacher out there. For the fall, we have 9 signed up. So we're pretty excited about that. So we're hoping to keep it doubled. Pre-service teachers, we want people to come in. We want, let them to see our schools so we can hire them. And then, of course, as far as our department, just streamlining application processes. We're really looking at that workflow, looking at who's involved, using a Google Doc so we can get a name and number. And because we know applications can be very tedious, so a lot of people don't want to complete them, but if we can get a name and number and help you through that process, we will. What we find the most is networking, people telling everybody how great the district is, our teachers speaking up, recruiting their friends, but that's a huge recruitment effort. We'll continue to have job fairs. We were pretty successful on our February 25th. We'll do one probably in May and July. Unless we have everyone hired in July, we don't have to do that. And just things that we can do to support our teachers and recruitment, those that are perhaps are employed under District of Innovation, helping them get their alternative certification, those types of things. One other thing I wanted to mention, and one reason I'm glad we have Casey here tonight, is security. Safety and security is a big deal right now in public schools. Last summer, I expressed to all of you, I had people asking about school marshals, about personal learning, location devices, personal location devices. That has never happened in 32 years in education like it did last year. And I want to commend the district for doing that, because it does recruit and I think retain teachers. So we appreciate that.
Okay, so as I said, we're going to focus next on how to look in at teacher value and teacher time and looking at the planning opportunities. Just wanted to bring this slide forward because this was the survey results from parents and staff regarding the additional staff planning day, and of all the models, this was the one that was most comparable. This is also just some teacher comments or quotes that from this is the Texas the teacher vacancy task force that the Commissioner of Education led. And I would say that probably, and based on what you heard tonight too, is emulate some of these same quotes here. And what the study was showing is that teachers work an average of 60 to 65 hours, and 60 might even be on the low end. Travis, you want to comment any more about this, of what from your standpoint as a principal?
Right, and we've heard a lot about this tonight, but staying with the, some things that we're proactively doing or recommending, for lack of a better word, but staying with the 8-period day, and having our secondary teachers have the 45-minute conference and the 45-minute planning, right, in that model, as well as looking at some of these other models to honor their time. With the feedback that we're getting, that work-life balance is crucial, and so we're not going to, on this slide, we're not going to read every quote there, but anything that we can do, recruitment-wise, but especially retention-wise, to show our teachers that we're listening is what this slide illustrates, because when they're talking about that they need extra time to put the best lessons possible on the table for our kids, given the feedback that they deserve, plus spend the time with their families, they're right on. I think, as we've talked a lot, we've talked to our staff at the high school a bunch, and I think all the principals have talked to their staffs about this. And we understand that one of the needs was financial, and they appreciate the recommendation. And when Ms. Koenig talks also about the benefits on top of a possible 3%, that's one edge of the sword. The other sword now is time, not only for our students, but for our families, right? When we look at, Team Lovejoy from that sense. And so that's really kind of sums up that slide.
And I would say with both this study and the Charles Butt Foundation study, it really aligned to what the feedback that we're receiving from teachers here in Lovejoy. Okay, so Holly is going to talk a little bit about, give you insight into the day of an elementary teacher. You've heard some of it already, so that y'all may have stolen
I
her
won't
thunder a
belabor
little bit,
this
so.
anymore. I mean, I think our teachers did a really phenomenal job of painting a picture of how they're spending the planning hours they do have on campus. I will just note that, I said they have 7.5 hours of planning each week. That's a very generous number, as you heard. That's if they don't have lunch and recess duty or one or the other, and most have one or the other every day. We do try to involve volunteers to offer some relief and create some rotation, but we've learned that we really need a certified teacher on those duties. We tried really hard, and it really didn't end up coming to fruition that was creating all this extra planning we were hoping for our teachers. It's by the time you get them there and get back and deal with the discipline that happened because you weren't there in the first place, it didn't really work out like we'd really hoped, but it was an effort. There was an attempt. And then we mentioned already that their planning times do get eaten up with very necessary meetings. These are meetings that are required to take great care of our kids, and we need their teacher in those meetings for that to happen. We have made some efforts to try to protect certain days. Okay, we're not gonna have meetings on these 2 days out of the week, so you can count on those for team planning days. Well, that doesn't always come to fruition either, because we do have sometimes staff members that are necessary to be in those meetings that are contracted, for instance, and are only in the district on certain days. And so, and really with the number of meetings, when we talk about 504R and PSTs, it's really necessary to go even beyond those protected days that we try to protect. So again, our teachers did a great job of explaining that those times do get eaten up. They shared with you all the things that don't happen in those 4 or 5 hours they actually do get, or 2 hours, or 1 hour and 10 days, or whatever it happens to be. They're both as an administrator in this district, having been a teacher in this district, as a parent in this district, there really isn't anything on this slide or the following slide that I would want removed from my child's experience in the classroom. This planning time is absolutely crucial to ensure that our students receive an aligned experience, that they're not receiving one experience that's at this level in one classroom and one experience that's at this level and a less level of rigor taking place in this classroom. That evens out as a result of the collaborative planning. And I will tell you that 95% of the things on these 2 lists were things that I was expected to do as a classroom teacher years and years and years ago. It's not that many years, but several years ago. Maybe not years and years and years. But we know these are best practices, and there is a direct correlation to these planning practices that are on these 2 slides and the level of excellence that we get from our students and that we give to our students. Direct correlation. It happens in planning. Once I'm in front of my kids in the classroom, that's where I'm implementing everything we discussed and everything we planned. Right? That's the icing on the cake once I'm in front of the kids. It happens at the base of the iceberg, right? Everything that's under the water. The tip is just when I'm in front of my kids in the classroom. The only thing I would say that maybe didn't get mentioned that is really a crucial point for me personally as an administrator, I've seen the work that some of my team on my special education staff have done to begin implementing pockets of co-teach at the elementary level. This has been a practice in place at upper grade levels, and really not at the elementary. It's really been more, it's either inclusion or resource pullout. And really we're finding we're meeting a whole lot of kids' needs in that co-teach environment. It's almost musical when you see it in the classroom, the ebb and flow between the 2 teachers that are working together. And gosh, y'all, I saw it in a classroom the other day, 2nd grader who was raising his hand and taking risks in that classroom and answering questions and feeling confidence that I did not see in him as a 1st grader last year. I saw a pretty unhappy, grouchy 1st grader last year, if I'm being completely honest. I observed him in a resource environment. I happened to be observing his teacher, and he was the student, and totally different kid. And I 100% attribute it to the work they've done with that co-teach environment. But that special education teacher and that general education teacher have to have that time to plan together, and it can be very challenging given that our special education teachers serve multiple grades, not just that one grade, and finding that common planning time. And I do think that this would help tremendously with that. So I would venture, I don't want to speak for my teachers, but I'm going to, because that's what I do. I don't think they want anything removed off these two lists. They just want the time to do their job and do it well. You know, in the past, we would get subs, and we would get subs for an entire grade level, and we would have what we called extended planning days. And we were able to give them maybe 3 throughout the week, and we budgeted for these subs. And I know after our teachers got that day, that they would have this like sense of relief, like we've got so much done. We had this whole day together, and we got all this planning taken care of, and they'd feel caught up for, you know, a couple weeks. And then it's like, okay, and now we're sinking again because we just haven't had the time to keep that momentum going. We haven't had the time. And frankly, we know our sub situation now, and that's really just not, it creates a worse problem if I have not enough subs for my teachers to plan. They can't focus on planning because they're splitting kids, and it's just not as feasible anymore. So this would be giving them back that we got so much done. We had that time together as a team. So again, I won't read all of those, but I did want to make those few points. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to add one thing, and I think y'all are just being sweet and polite, but this is a very engaging community, right? So I don't know how many hours you spend dealing with concerned parents. I know I've called and emailed, right? So thank you for that. And you do your jobs by also reassuring us that you're taking care of our kids. So it wasn't on the list, but that's probably one more thing that wasn't up there because you're so polite.
So what would an extended teacher planning day be? It would be additional time. It would allow teachers time for planning. It would not be a day that we would schedule professional development. We would not schedule meetings. We look at these teachers as professionals and needed some concentrated time, as Holly was referring to, for them to plan. They could do it as a team. They could do it individually. It's really their call as professionals on how they would best use that time. How would we go about doing it? It would mean adjusting the approved 23-24 school calendar to reflect the addition of extended teacher planning days. We would not anticipate that it would impact the approved calendar start date or end date or holidays that are currently in there at this time. Probably more on that note there about changing 8 to 10 instructional days. We're thinking more so probably convert 7 instructional days to teacher extended planning days, and then would extend the school day for students anywhere from an estimate of 10 to 25 minutes, where we're being probably a little bit more conservative, where it would be 10, 15, and 20 minutes is what we're thinking. Looking at the calendar, looking at days that we have high absences, how could we back up some of those days that traditionally where we've had a significant number of when students are out? Repurposing early release days. Some of the early release days, not the high school early release days for exams, but early release days that we have across the district for extended teacher planning days, and then repurposing some existing professional development days for planning days. So the impact that the community feels like it would have, it would allow teachers time for planning and preparation, and would also support teacher staff recruitment and retention. Just kind of thinking about beyond that, could it also positively impact teacher staff morale? It's a non-monetary compensation for staff that through our Lovejoy 2030 strategic planning is identified as a strategy. It would require the modifications to the approved 23-24 school calendar. It would increase time for quality staff planning, which the committee believes can positively impact student achievement, and might mitigate a portion of the child care needs for families and staff that would exist if, versus a 4-day student instructional week. And just adding to that, we are exploring some opportunities for child care that that may be able to enhance even what we have right now. Just for our after school care, if we had if parents wanted to opt in with the child care on these extended staff planning days, and then also could enrich our summer too. So so how when you look at the school calendar, these are the requirements. When we look at, we have to identify, we base those school calendars on the minutes, the required minutes. And it would not impact ADA because a day is a day that a student is absent. So the minutes, if you added minutes to the day, it would not impact that. And just a reminder, teachers are not, they're paid for a 187 days of service. So those extended teacher planning days would be part of the 187 days that they're under contract. When students have holidays and teachers have holidays, those are not part of their contract days. I gave you, and Roderick, did you get those passed out? And this was a chart that was included in Connect with Katie that was sent out before spring break, just as a comparison. And we did this mainly just to help use this at the parent input, our parent information meeting we held before spring break, and it just was to give a comparison of what that might look like. And again, I put the disclaimer out there. These were just samples just to kind of get an idea of the impact that might make. But there are 4 calendars there for you to look at. The approved student calendar as it stands now, a sample of 2 calendars that would have extended teacher planning days included, and then looking at a 4-day student instructional week. And that would really be where you would not change the start date or end date, but you'd have to extend the school day even more so and take out some existing holidays. But that was really just for that purpose. And just so we are going with next steps, the committee will continue the work. We are finishing up campus team huddles this week. We're getting in front of our staff and talking about this, the information about the master scheduling. We will be finishing up a second parent information meeting this Wednesday. We met with the Financial Sustainability Committee in Lovejoy 2030 last Thursday, and then we have our second meeting on this Thursday, so that we have another opportunity for teacher and parent input, providing you an update tonight, and then possibly recommendations coming forward at the March 27th or April 11th meeting. And then a survey was released on Friday to parents and staff, and we'll be bringing those survey results forward at the Financial Sustainability Committee meeting on Thursday night, and we'll have it ready for the board meeting next Monday. So.
Questions, board?
Okay, I'll go first. Thank you, all of you. It's been very compelling to hear your voice. We hear about your voice, but to actually hear your voice, for me, has been very meaningful, and I appreciate you taking even more time to come to a board meeting to speak to us and to prepare very thoughtful, logical requests. I think what I got out of this, well, a lot of things, but what I would love to see moving forward is more committees continually hearing teacher voice of, like, I heard interventionists a lot, that the loss of that. I'd love for them to be able to, in a day, tell us what is it that's going to make my day more efficient and make things more meaningful for kids. You're the ones doing the work. So if we have a committee continually evaluating, I would love to see that, not just about this master schedule, but the work they do every day and how it can be done best needs to come from their voice. That's been the most impactful thing for me tonight, for sure.
I also wanted to share my appreciation for the comments tonight and the time you spent preparing them, the time you spent here with us, and helping us understand your perspective. We are grateful for that, and it was very helpful, so thank you for that. And thank you for the presentation. All right, we will move on now to item 8, technology and instructional materials presentation.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to get in front of you just to give you, you've been hearing updates about our technology inventory process and also our instructional materials. And we are ready to provide some findings for you and put some dollar amounts to that tonight. So just as a timeline on the technology side, we did a preliminary student device inventory back at the beginning of the year, and we identified that we had some significant gaps on devices that would support student testing. And as you know, the STAR testing is all going online this year, so students will be taking it on Chromebooks, is what our plan is. So we came to you in November. You approved to purchase the funding to purchase Chromebooks using some previous bond monies for student testing. Those have arrived, and we've got those on our campuses where we saw the need, particularly, but it's mainly focused on testing. But we did communicate at that time that we needed to do some additional work on really getting to the point where we were clear about our current state when it comes to technology needs. John Korb came on board with us. We were excited to have him join us in January, and he's done a phenomenal job moving us forward and getting us to a much closer current state of understanding where our needs are. We've gone through and redone some inventories of student and teacher devices. We still have some areas that we need to do some further study on. He's also done some analysis of some of our common areas with audiovisual enhancement, servers, and access points. And then we've been wanting to have a strategic cycle so we don't end up where we are right now, so that we have a refresh plan moving forward so that we keep on top of where our needs are when it comes to whether it's our infrastructure, our systems, or our devices. We've been looking at budget sources to secure the needed technology sources. And so this month, we're going to be talking about in just a few minutes about use of bond funds to respond to those district and campus technology needs, but we still have continuing analysis. So I just want to make that real clear that we believe will surface through the capital planning committee work. And then the other thing we are adding, we decided to go ahead and purchase it. We did not really have a good inventory system for our technology devices, so we have located one that will serve as that, and also our instructional materials, so that we know where we stand and we can keep track of where things are going and where our needs are. So we are in the process of getting that purchased and up and going very soon. So when we looked at our gaps from the audiovisual enhancement piece, we're projecting approximately about $500,000 with a significant amount of that being over at the high school auditorium. Student devices that would get us through 2 years, we're projecting about $360,000. Staff devices, which we believe is another enhancement for teacher and staff recruitment, because it would provide teachers flexibility to work, from home if they do not have a device. Right now, we do have, desktops for our teachers to use. Some have laptops. It's kind of been dependent on the campus whether they wanted to purchase it or not, or they were purchased the grants. But the goal is that we would have laptops for all of our professionals. And then we have built in an infrastructure refresh, but that's only over a 2-year period, and looking at our security servers and our access points. So the AV refresh was focusing on those campus common areas, our cafeterias, our gyms, the auditorium, and so that's what we've been working on from that standpoint. When we look at student devices, what we would like to move forward is that for pre-K through 4 is that we would have classroom devices in those for students to use. We're not necessarily saying one-to-one, but what we're thinking is that we could take our current iPads and laptops, move all of those over to the elementary classrooms so that teachers had what they need, whether they were doing it for stations or they had some group work. But we feel like what we currently have, we can repurpose those over at the elementary schools. Then we would be looking at one-to-one for 5th grade through 12th grade. And we haven't clearly defined yet what one-to-one would mean, whether it would be checked out to students where they would be taking them back and forth from home, or It would just be where we would have a computer for, or a Chromebook for every student on those campuses. So that's still to be determined because just of insurance and repair cost, and we want to get that more clearly defined. So as you look, the bond, what we would be requesting with the bond monies would be for 23, 24. And then we have 3 years out that we would not have funding at this time if the bond was, monies were approved. And then in the green, you'll see the refresh years that John has built into this. So that would keep us on top of where, as we were aging out devices and purchasing new ones.
With this one-to-one, like we've not ever had that really, so it's been kind of this willy-nilly of teaching their own device. And if we get to this one-to-one, does the student then use the tool device or do they choose their own? Like, what's the purpose behind that? And
Go ahead, John.
Yep. So that would be every student in grades 5 through 12 with the device. And that's so that they have it in instruction. Teachers can then take advantage of things like Google Classroom. So every kid, there's no inequity there, and every kid has the same device.
So if they have their own, don't bring it, use the one the school has.
They're certainly welcome to use their own.
Okay.
I mean,
I didn't know if there was an advantage to use the Lovejoy
They'll
one.
still have the same access, but they'll have one for the school to use too.
John, would there be a security feature if they use the district one versus their own? Would there be any difference in that?
No, there wouldn't be any security issue based on whichever one they used. It's all cloud-based. They're accessing it through our Google Cloud.
There are a couple advantages to having students on our devices. One being that our teachers, it's easier for our teachers in a couple ways. They can utilize a program that we have called Go Guardian, and it also helps keep students safer, and they can monitor what students are doing. And one click of a couple buttons, they can make sure all of their students are looking at the same screen. From a classroom management standpoint, they also can send students individual messages or send the whole class a message. 4 more minutes till we come back to whole group. So make sure you have your questions ready. So that is a huge advantage. The other is when we think about having lean staff in terms of technology on our campuses for any troubleshooting of issues, that becomes much easier when students are on our own devices, whereas having a teacher in a classroom who's having to manage a whole bunch of different devices and trying to help students troubleshoot devices that don't belong to us, that can add time.
So when we're looking at staff devices, so if we were moving into the 23-24 school year to ensure that all staff members would have a laptop, the projected cost is $400,000. This would be a tiered refresh as well. The challenge if we started and we added each year, we would not be able to ensure that all staff members next year would have a computer, and we felt that that was super important and also might be a recruitment tool as well. So when you look at the technology infrastructure, we're talking about security camera enhancements and then also some access points. John, you want to speak a little bit more to this?
Absolutely. Right now, our security camera infrastructure is fairly old, end of life. We actually had just this past month a couple of instances where we had to replace servers at the high school that were recording security camera footage. So it's struggling along. We're keeping it running, but this is certainly a big need for us right now. So that's why that's in there. We're looking for the next 2 years to kind of have that covered. Certainly could use more to get all the servers updated, but we're going to tier that approach. And then last but not least, same goes with our Wi-Fi infrastructure. Our access points are, again, reaching that end of life point. So we want to tier that replacement, move campus by campus, start updating those as we can.
And this proposal includes those access points as well?
Correct. That's access points and the associated controllers.
A question. Is this just the servers or is it the cameras themselves as well?
It is the servers right now. Our cameras, we typically replace those one at a time. They're fairly durable. A lot of times when you replace a camera infrastructure, you replace the backbone. You don't replace the individual endpoints. So that I feel like that's probably an approach we'll take. We may replace some of the server support, but we won't go out and get each individual camera.
Just a quick follow-up would be, I certainly know there's some limitations with quality, but do you feel like we have enough security cameras where we need them in order to capture all of the points where we might have a student?
So this is a great point. There's a line where security and technology interact, and I'll say that that's definitely something that we're working with our security team, with our new operations director, to kind of see what are some areas that maybe we're not approaching. Maybe we can improve some camera quality in certain areas so that we get better pictures, things like that. But we're not quite there on having that defined.
And keep in mind, this isn't the final assessment of things. This is initially where we're at. And then we've got the capital assessment process that we're going to go through, and security cameras, to John's point, will be part of that.
So this is maintaining what we currently have.
Any other questions about technology? Okay, I'm going to lead into the instructional materials. I believe I shared this at the last board meeting, but we started the inventory in September, and these are the findings that we had from the inventory. We identified that there were several areas that we did not even have primary instructional resources for teachers to access. So when they don't have those instructional resources, that takes time, and they're searching and trying to locate what they need. We also identified that we had some resources that were outdated. Some we had did not align with the text and the course standards. And I think that's a result of it, because we didn't provide it. Teachers were just searching for what they needed. We had some issues with age appropriateness. We had some being used with some younger kids that really were probably not appropriate. Also some areas with alignment with district and community values. And then decisions we were making that could be sustainable over time. So were we investing in resources, but yet we did not have a plan to sustain it past that year of purchase. So some actions we've taken is that we've prioritized our immediate needs and developed a budget to cover where the gaps are, but also to sustain beyond this school year and where we feel like those sources can come from. We've also, and with that piece, and then you saw where we are with the technology. So timeline, again, we mentioned September we started this. We've spent October, November, and even a good part of December that we were reviewing the inventory. And as you can imagine, there are thousands and thousands of instructional materials that we're using in our classrooms throughout this district. So we have worked with vendors to determine the projected costs for those materials. We identified priorities for purchasing and drafted a plan. And we're recommending what I'm going to show you in just a minute, that these materials we would use existing bond funds to close the gap. And then again, we purchased an inventory system so that we do not end up where we are right now. So, and we're even getting to the point to where our ideal state is to where we could have a standard like this is what you would have in a kindergarten classroom. This is what you would have in a 5th grade science classroom, so that we keep those standards and equity across the district and across the courses and teachers as well. So where we identified the gaps with language arts for K2 and English 4, we have seen a need. The K2 is the Hegarty Phonics, which right now is a part of the balanced reading approach we take. Right now we have one Hegarty Phonics book per grade level, which makes it very difficult for teachers on planning. So that is what we're proposing purchasing one for all K2 teachers so that they have that resource. And it would be a one-time purchase. You do not have to purchase that annually. And then our English 4 course does not have a primary instructional resource right now. That would be a reoccurring cost that we would propose we use with our IMAP monies that we receive from the state. And we're hoping the IMAP monies are going to return back to the original funding prior to COVID so that we can sustain this over the 2-year period. But we won't know that amount until the legislative session is over. Math K through 5, I brought forward last time, we do not have a primary instructional resource for K-5 math. There is one right now on the adoption list, the one that we're looking at that would be free. However, some of the pattern we've seen with the agency, they'll offer it free, and then a year or two later, they'll start charging you for it. So, but this right here is a resource that our teachers really do value, and it does allow them to differentiate instruction for students, which is a time saver. So to take, and again, this is one the district gave you free, and now they're charging for it. So they dangle that carrot out there, we start using it, and then we have to start paying for it, incur the cost on it. But we felt very strongly that if we took this away, it was going to impede some of the work that our K-5 teachers are doing with math instruction. Science equipment, just K-12, we're really just looking at, we need to upgrade some of our science equipment. So we have some new science texts that are going to be implemented. Well, we're going to start with K2 next year, and then the following year will be full implementation all the way up through high school. So we're projecting about $60,000 in science equipment, K-12. We have some CTE courses that do not have primary resources right now, and this also includes a $3,000 cost of the new drone course that we're adding. Assessment resources, that's a pretty big number, and the reason is that is for a 3-year, we could purchase for 3 years. There was about a savings of about $60,000 if we went 3 years rather than an annual cost on that. And when we look at assessment resources, we think this can be time saving because right now we're writing it, we're paying teachers to do it during curriculum writing. They're having to write assessments on their own time. Also, TEA will put out assessments for our teachers to use, and then they'll pull back and start charging for them. So when we totaled up what we were currently paying in assessments, resources, and adding this, we felt like this was a better approach. Plus it was more comprehensive. It would cover reading, math, science, and also some of our end of course. And so it would put some of those screeners in place that our teachers are needing when we talk about the MTSS process too. Advanced placement, we see about $300 with a course there. With some elective courses where there are gaps, about $5,000. And then I've mentioned the instructional materials resource manager system. The initial setup was for $21,000. We found some current budget money that we're going to use for that, but the annual cost will be about $9,000 on that. So if bond monies were approved for that, then we could just repurpose those funds for that purpose. So the total is about $432,600 is what we would project to get us up to par to where we would have just your basic instructional materials across all courses. So, questions?
To be clear for the board, this is prior to our capital planning process. This is things we need to do today to bring us up to speed. And as we proactively plan ahead, we'll be having other things that we need to address as well.
Correct.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Dr. Tinsley? Thank you very much. Item 9, Ms. Cabrera, use of bond funds and capital plan and capital needs.
Yes, good evening, President Owens, esteemed board members, and Superintendent Cordell. Tonight, I am going to request that you consider, we'll actually have you approve it at the next board meeting, but we're going to ask you to consider our request or recommendation for the use of the remaining bond funds. This is the Series 2021, $5 million. And as you recall, At a prior board meeting, we kind of gave a recap of where we were, of what had been spent or committed, encumbered. And so just a real quick recap of what we've spent to date or have committed is total athletic projects, 1.5 million, the safety and security projects, about 288,000, our building updates and maintenance, about 435,000, and total technology, the Chromebooks we just, Dr. Tinsley just talked about 75,000. So of that $5 million, we already have committed about $2.3 million. So what that leaves us with is the original issue, less what's been spent or encumbered, plus a little bit increase from the last presentation, because we now have interest earned through February the 28th, about $75,000. So we're looking at our potential use, our recommendations for the remaining 2.77 million. So our capital needs that we've identified, this is a summary, and we have some corresponding slides for some of the projects. So the first item Dr. Tinsley just addressed, instructional materials. Now I like to kind of round up because we really don't know about price increases that may occur by the time we get to the point of actually doing a purchase requisition. And then also you never know what will happen with freight, delivery, those sorts of incidental charges. So I round up the instructional materials as a not to exceed about $450,000. And then the technology infrastructure and equipment, again, what Dr. Tinsley just went over, not to exceed about $1.5 million. And technology software, this is just a placeholder for now. We've not really vetted out the funds that are available or would be available from the bond funds from this issue for a new ERP system. So that would be for our HR, payroll, finance system. We currently use Ascender, and we've kind of outgrown it. It doesn't integrate really well, and with declining staff and trying to work smarter, we're thinking that a new software system would allow us to be a little bit more efficient and certainly save on a lot of staff's time, as well as Power School upgrade. Again, we don't have all of the required things that will help our HR people do their job. And so that two items combined, not to exceed $308,000. Cafeteria tables for Sloan Creek, I should have put in there, this is a request for a full replacement of all their cafeteria tables, about 30 of them. The current ones are not very safe. They have seats that are missing. We have cones over some of those seats, which I believe Superintendent Cordell said she almost tripped on one the other day. And so we're looking at that replacement not to exceed $80,000. They're also ADA compliant. Football helmets not to exceed $125,000, and that's a request for 5 years replacement. They have a 10-year replacement cycle. Regardless of when you get them, if they're on the shelves, that 10-year starts the minute you take possession of the helmets. Custodial equipment not to exceed $220,000. Maintenance equipment not to exceed $40,000. And then, of course, the formal needs assessment, which has already begun, PBK, on looking at building life cycles and other educational needs for about $47,000. The instructional materials, this is just another recap of some of the information that was already shared with you. So, of course, we can circle back if there's any further questions. Technology, just a little recap of the major items to equal that request. Again, remember, I rounded that up to 1.5 million. On the football helmet replacements, Kevin, was there anything on here that you would like to talk about? I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Because of all of the safety guidelines that go into football and the safety equipment, and they have a 10-year lifespan. We recondition them about every 2 to 3 years based on the amount of use they get. So high school helmets are going to get reconditioned more frequently than middle school helmets. And currently, like I said, the approximate cost is about $350. This year, we're going to need to replace about 40 helmets, and you can see over the next 5 years, the number of helmets each year that'll need to be replaced some way, somehow.
So Kevin, I was just having a kid playing football. I was under the impression that kids were buying their own helmets.
Some are, and that is going to, when we get into the 25, 26, the more kids we have buying, that could decrease the amount of helmets that we need.
Got it.
We don't require them.
We offer them.
We offer parents to buy, because some kids, they just want to have their own helmet they take with them from year to year, but they still have to replace them every 10 years if they even purchase theirs, and they have to get theirs reconditioned.
Thank you.
On the custodial, this is exactly the same slide we shared with you. So I was just bringing it back for all the different items that were requested to be purchased. And at this time, we're requesting for the full amount, the priority needs, and those that would be delayed 6 or 12 months, because bond funds can be used over a series of multiple years. And the facility maintenance are these 3 lawnmowers, again, that we discussed last time. And then, of course, the PBK architect assessment, and I'm available to answer any questions.
I will also note that we have Alex and Rico here, who are outstanding and go above and beyond every day, as do their teams, and they are here to answer any questions that you might have.
Just a presentation, correct? You're making the request at our next board meeting. You keep saying request that we do this, so just making sure that we're not missing something here.
No, the consider an act will be brought to you for the next Monday night's board meeting.
Perfect.
I think we answered this, that anything that comes out of the $47,000 PBK will be evaluated by the Capital Needs Committee, and that would be an additional, the $9 million that we could issue.
9.5 million that we have yet to sell.
Yeah, that's already been approved by voters.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Authorized but unissued.
Further questions? Thank you very much. All right, item 10, Anna, consider and take possible action to declare the needs for a reduction in force in accordance with board policy DFFB local.
Good evening, everyone. This is not something that I look forward to. In fact, I've been dreading this all night and all weekend, knowing that we've had to talk about this. First of all, I just wanted to present you with some information about a reduction in force program change. This is something that, of course, for the past 2 years, we've been trying to avoid doing. Last year, through our staffing study, we did do not an official reduction in force, but we were able to handle some things through attrition, teacher attrition, staff attrition there. So according to our our Lovejoy 2030 strategic plan, one of our strategic targets stated, 7.2, that we would develop and implement intentional staffing efficiencies. And we started that process last year. Every single position we recommended, we reviewed it at cabinet, we looked at salary, we looked at where they are in the compensation plan, if that was a need, if that was a want. We were pretty specific and intentional when we looked at positions going into the 22-23 school year. Some of the things on here that we talked about were staffing guidelines, looking at master scheduling, looking at contract days, job descriptions when we brought people in. We also looked at stipends. Could we combine some positions, making it more efficient? Also, as you recall, we had some areas of overstaffing that we had to work with, and we did all that through attrition, which was great. Once again, we're looking at that again. We've started the zero-based budgeting and some of those types of things that we're doing and continuing to look at finances. But tonight, we're really talking about some of our challenges. And of course, here in Lovejoy, we do want to retain that legacy of excellence. Our students do great in that performance, and we want to keep that here. That's what makes us special. We do have some other challenges. We have teacher staff retention, recruitment, and support, and of course, responding to funding challenges there. Some of the actions that were taken back in 21-22, we did identify the priorities you did as a board: fund balance, compensation, attendance, and enrollment. We established stakeholder, the Financial Sustainability Committee. We did of course, the Lovejoy 2030 Committee. We looked at capacity assessment, how many kiddos our buildings would hold. We looked at the demographic study, looking at also enrollment numbers, how many kids were moving into the district. We know that 400 kids are graduating every year, and we have about 180 kids in kindergarten. So that's significantly different. And of course, once again, looking at zero-based budgeting, those types of things. This year, as Katie has addressed this slide, I think multiple times, is we looked at, once again, we updated that demographic study. We met with him once today. We're looking at staffing and efficiencies there, and the capacity of the buildings. Looking at our budget 3 years out. We did, recommend a BATRE, hoping to also help avoid this. That did not pass, so there are other measures that we have to take in place. Once again, we've got to have that fund balance where we need it, so we can pay our teachers and our staff, and also we need to recruit and retain, and so employee compensation is important there. One thing that I wanted to share with you. Our master scheduling committee has looked at all areas of master scheduling, so to see if there are some staffing efficiencies that could be done. We've also, once again, looked at that student projection. We're reviewing all those master schedules, department responsibilities here at admin on campuses. This is a non-exhaustive list, but I feel like we're really making some strides and trying to look at everything we can do to help our staff and our teachers. We also went back and I pulled exactly how many employees we had. And in 2018 and 2019, there were 637. And there was a RIF that year, a reduction in force, and then it went up that following year to 640. 2021, there was also apparently a RIF that year, a program RIF, reduction in force, what took it down by 20. And then 21-22, we did not do, entering that year was 600, and then this year we entered at 530, which all that was done through attrition. You'll see numbers from about 520 to about 535 for this year because we've done better on hiring bus drivers. We've hired some, also have hired some of those hard to fill areas there, everything from tech apps to aides and some of those types of positions. We are doing a little bit better on hiring. I know in December that was about 510 number, so just to bring you some awareness there. So when we look at a reduction in force due to program change, we look at board policy DFFB local. And basically what that says is when a reduction in force is due to a program change, requires the non-renewal of a term contract. A program change may be due, for example, a redirection of resources, efforts to improve efficiency, which is what we're hoping to do, a change in enrollment, a lack of student response to a particular course offering, legislative revisions to programs, or reorganization or consolidation of two or more individual schools, departments, or districts. We're really looking at improving our efficiency here, okay? We're not eliminating any opportunities for students. That is not on the table at all. We do not want to do that. We have that legacy of excellence, and we want to continue that legacy of excellence. What we're wanting to do is reallocate resources for our students, okay? And put those resources in other areas there. So as you can see, a program change does mean elimination, reorganization, all those types of things. Non-renewal, the definition is the termination of a term contract at the end of a contract period. So it could impact some employees that are on a term contract there. Basically, what happens here is that we look at criteria when we go through a reduction in force, and the criteria here are listed in an order of importance, and we have to apply those. That's our board policy. We have to identify employees who least satisfy the criteria and therefore are subject to the reduction in force. So the first is qualifications for current or projected assignment. So we look at everyone's certification. We look at endorsements. We look at, CDLs. We look at all those types of things. Then we look at teacher effectiveness or performance, employee effectiveness. We look at the most recent formal appraisal. We look at anything including disciplinary information from the last 3 years, 36 months, okay? And then from there, we look at extra duties, assignments, department grade level chairs, band directors, those types of things, and then professional background and experience, and last, seniority. So as we look at this reduction in force, we would specifically go through those steps to identify those that would be impacted there. An employee who does receive a notice of proposed non-renewal may apply for any available position. So basically what we want to do is once we identify the program, so tonight, all I'm asking you to do is act and consider and act on a reduction in force. Then we would go back, if you approve it, and we would determine what areas would be, what programmatic areas would be impacted. I would bring those back to you next week on the 27th, and then you would vote on those. Keep in mind, any of those areas or any of those positions that would be impacted, it's not employees, it's positions would be impacted, they do have the right of first refusal. So we would offer them any positions that they are qualified for, they would apply for, through Frontline, through the job description, they could apply for, and if they met the qualification, they could be rehired in those positions. Okay?
So Anna, I'm assuming you have some idea of these positions. How many?
Less than 10.
Less than 10 positions we're speaking of, because I know we've obviously achieved a lot of efficiency through attrition. We focused on this extensively to the tune of over $1 million last year. So we're refining down to the point of less than 10 folks.
Right, and what's unique about this is as we look at efficiencies, we did so much through attrition. Now it's like specific positions. Can we combine some specific positions? I know in my office, I've picked up some other responsibilities in our HR department to help with those efficiencies. That just happened through attrition. But yes, I think because we look at every single position before we hire for it. So you're correct.
And we're confident through this process that we're not taking opportunities away from students.
We are not. No. It is not any type of program change that would impact students. Students would still have every opportunity there. Go ahead.
This is not a predetermination of the number of periods in a day we're going.
No, I think Dr. Tinsley already said we're staying to 8 period day. We're not doing a 4-day week. This is just more efficiency. I can see in a couple of areas that we are overstaffed. Part of that, I think, is because we did so much last year, they weren't as noticeable. So now, as I have more opportunity, and we do, as we work with our campus administrators and our admin staff here, we can see that there are some efficiencies there that we feel like we can make a difference, and that it is reallocating funds and resources to students.
Board, do you have any other questions?
So basically, at this time, the superintendent, myself, as a superintendent's designee, recommend declaring a reduction in force due to the next necessary programmatic changes identified across the district. Is there questions for me, Eva?
If there's no other questions, consider a motion.
So, like Anna said, this is never fun, but I do think we need to be responsible, right? Because that's what we're here for. It's only fair to the taxpayers, to the teachers, to the kids, just to the whole community. So I'll make the motion to take action to declare the need for reduction in force in accordance to board policy DFFB local.
So moved. Ann Smith, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Jeff Wood. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. All right, and with that, there being no announcement, we would be adjourned.